Good afternoon, Huskies, and welcome to our next installment of our Elevate Career Hacks Online. My name is Joshua Prue, and I'm the Director of Alumni Engagement for the Office of Alumni Relations here at UConn. For those of you who have participated in previous online sessions, welcome back. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to our Career Hacks series. This series is our online version of our Elevate Your Career Next Level, which just wrapped up in January, which is our month-long initiative that has been ongoing over the course of the last month. We like to take this opportunity to introduce alumni experts throughout the country who can provide career benefit opportunities to all of you over the web. The Career Hack series is in its second year and has 3 installments this year. The first being in January, second being today, and we have a third one on April 10th, specifically trying to help all of our folks who are in a niche area looking for grant writing. You can find out the entire series by visiting uconnalumni.com/events at your leisure. Today's workshop features Paula, Calise, a graduate of the class of '77 in the business program here at UConn. She's a local to Stores and grew up attending E.O. Smith High School here in town. And she's been a longtime Texan, but still maintains all of her roots right here in Stores with family and friends locally. Before we begin, I just have a few housekeeping items I want to put in front of you to manage your participation today. There will be an opportunity to ask questions by typing them into the question box on your control panel. Feel free to type them in as you think of them, and we'll address as many as we can as time allows at the end of the presentation. Second, you'll be sent a survey in a follow-up email. We'd greatly appreciate if you could fill out that survey so that we can continue to bring the types of programs that you're looking for. Third, the presentation is being recorded, so feel free to visit our YouTube page at youtube.com/UConnAlumni later this week to review and view previously conducted presentations. And lastly, be sure to check out our events calendar for all upcoming events throughout the country at UConnAlumni.com/events. Without further ado, Paula, the show is yours.
It was a really hot day, and in Dallas, you can imagine that to be true. And I was running between appointments, and I ran into my favorite cafe in the area. If any of you from Dallas, you know La Madeleine. And I was meeting a woman named Karen. I didn't know Karen. Karen was a friend of a friend. So I looked around, found Karen, sat down, and we started our conversation. And I said to her the truth. I said, Karen, please forgive me for not being as prepared today as I might be. I have failed to look at your LinkedIn profile and I haven't seen your resume. Bring me up to date. Tell me about yourself. So Karen says to me, well, Paula, I am the Vice President of Marketing for Mary Kay Cosmetics. I said, okay. I said, tell me more. And she says, well, I've been there 18 years. And in those 18 years in marketing for Mary Kay, I've done it all. I've done advertising, I've done content creation, I've done promotions, I've built marketing staffs, I've done sponsorships, I've studied market trends, I've made market plans, I've done events and trade shows, I've managed agencies, I've done market research, qualitative and quantitative, public relations, media relations, corporate communications, direct mail, print. And as Karen's speaking, I'm thinking, so what? So what? So what? Because honestly, who raises to the ranks of a vice president of a brand name company who hasn't done advertising, promotions, sponsorship, trade shows, events, collateral? What Karen was telling me was, she's pretty ordinary. Let me stop and introduce myself. My name is Paula Calise. I'm an executive recruiter, and I feel hard to fill positions. And if there's nothing else that you remember about me today, after we spend this hour together, it's that you will remember that I'm an executive recruiter and I feel hard to fill positions. That is my brand. And my brand serves me very well because I've been using that same brand for, let's say, 12 years now since I started this business. And it's worked so well for me that all of my business comes from referral and repeat business. I haven't made a sales call in more than 8 years. All of my business comes referred to me because people know that I'm an executive recruiter and I feel hard to fill positions. I will tell you, it's really amazing how this works. I was driving in my car a few months ago. I had to pull over because this man said to me, hello, I'm calling, my name is so-and-so, I'm calling from Costa Rica, and I understand that you feel hard to fill positions. Well, wow, yeah, I guess the word's gotten out pretty far and wide. So that's the reason we're going to spend some time today, is how can you land on your brand in such a way that you can be remembered and referred, that people can talk about you when you're not in the room and present you and present and advocate your brand. But before we do, let's finish Karen's story. So in front of you, you see a picture of the black hole. And when Karen was telling me that she does advertising promotions and event planning and so on and so forth, and I'm thinking, who cares, who cares, who cares? Karen was really missing a golden opportunity. Because what I didn't tell you about Karen is she and I met in 2008. Those of you who are out there who are old enough to have worked and lived through that terrible economic recession remembers that a lot of people were being laid off. And indeed, Karen was working for Mary Kay Cosmetics, but it would only be for another week. She too was being laid off. And Karen was going to jump into the job market, which was very skinny to begin with, and try to become a vice president of marketing for another company. And her story was weak. Her story sounded like the chapters of a marketing text. I do advertising, I do creative, I do sponsorship, I do trade shows. And I'm telling her, who cares, who cares? So I stopped Karen and I said, hey, Karen, let's take our conversation in a slightly different way. I said, I am not a Mary Kay user. However, I do notice that the brand looks a little differently than it used to. And she goes, oh, thank you, Paula. Thank you for noticing. Karen says to me, that is our rebranding effort. I said, oh, well, that's interesting. Tell me about that. And she said, well, about 18 months ago, myself and the rest of the leadership team, we went on a woods weekend. And what we were doing is we were imagineering what the company would be like 10 years into the future. And we all worked on this and we all came away with assignments. My assignment was to bring the brand up to the degree that it would need to be as we developed our company into the next 10 years. I said, oh, that's interesting work, Karen. I said, Karen, how much of that work in rebranding your business did you initiate from your desk? Did you approve or did you work on yourself? And I wanted to know if Karen had her fingerprints on this, because in this day and age, we could just hire a branding company and they would do it for us. But Karen said, well, Paula, it's interesting you'd ask because 3 of us did it. Myself, a staff member, and we hired a contractor to work with us. We did best practices research and we did case study research and did the work ourselves, all of it. I said, well, Karen, how did it turn out? What happened? She goes, no, we really moved the needle. She said, it was our goal on the way in to increase thus and such by such an amount, and we beat that. We wanted to improve our positioning in a certain period of time, and we beat that. So here is Karen. She was a really smart vice president of marketing, and she knew her KPIs right on the tip of her fingertips. So I said, well, Karen, you've changed the brand, you've done it yourself, you've moved the needle. Am I hearing you right? And she says, yes. I said, Karen, can you tell me that you revitalize tired brands? And Karen had a light bulb moment. She said, absolutely, Paula. I revitalize tired brands. Isn't that a more powerful thing for Karen to say about herself? Doesn't it tell you more about her expertise than I do advertising, I do promotions, I do collateral? Because all of those are so what? All of those are just table stakes. Everybody in a vice president of marketing role can do those things. But how many people can revitalize tired brands? Only Karen that I know of. Here it is. Hold on, I'm helping a friend here. Take it away, please. Many people can do advertising promotions, but revitalizing tired brands, that's very special. And here's something else. This was 2008, and I meet hundreds and hundreds of marketers. And you know what? I've never heard another marketer say this about themselves. 10 years later, if Karen still wants to say, I revitalize tired brands, I'm a marketing executive, I revitalize tired brands, she would be pretty unique. What a way to build a brand. What a way to build a brand. So I've just introduced you to myself. I'm an executive recruiter, and I feel hard to fill positions. Karen's the vice president of marketing, and she revitalizes tired brands. And one of the things that we'll do in the rest of this hour is train your ears to hear what a great brand sounds like. And those are two examples. So what I'd like to do is introduce another friend of mine to you. Her name is Shauna Black. Those of us who live in the Dallas area, many of us know Shauna. I met Shauna years ago at a business meeting. I introduced myself. Shauna, my name is Paula Calise. I'm an executive recruiter, and I feel hard to fill positions. And she says to me, well, I'm Shauna Black, and I help manufacturing plants become LEED certified. You know what LEED is? It's the green process. And I thought, wow, that's a very cool thing to say. I'm Shauna Black, and I help manufacturing plants become LEED certified. Well, it was probably 7 or 8 years later that I met Shauna, and she was at a lectern introducing a speaker. After the speaking event, I went up to her and I said, hi, Shauna, you and I met a number of years ago. I know that you help manufacturing plants become LEED certified. And Shauna said, what? She says, how did you remember that? She says, I haven't said that about myself in a number of years because I've changed my professional outlook. And I said, Shauna, what you said to me that day has stayed with me for the last 10 years because I've never heard it before. I've never known anyone with that expertise, and I've never known anyone with the clarity to tell me what they did the way you did there. So now you've met 3 of us. I feel hard to fill positions. Karen revitalizes tired brands. Shauna helps manufacturing plants become LEED certified. I hope you're getting a feel for what a clear professional brand sounds like. Hey, Josh, I think we're going to have a poll at this point, are we not?
We are, and it just popped up on everyone's screen. So if you can take a moment, click which answer actually fits you the best. The question, what observation or objection do you have about forming your professional brand? We have, my career is long and successful. It's not a one-liner. Second option, it sounds goofy to me. And third, I do more than one thing. I can't narrow it down. So if you want to go ahead and click your selection that you can most associate with. We'll leave the poll up just for another minute or so. About 70% of you have filled that out. Last call if you want to participate in this. All right, Paula, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to put the poll here up on the screen with everyone. We have, my career is long and successful. It's not a one-liner. 17% can most associate with that. It sounds goofy to me, 13%. And 70% coming in at, I do more than one thing. I can't narrow it down.
Did you say 70, 70?
That's correct.
Got it. All right. Well, you know what? We will talk about every single one of those things. I have them in front of me, and as we go, I will answer every single one of those because I hear this a lot. Okay, before I answer each of those things, let's talk about what a brand, a professional brand is. A professional brand is this. It's the distillation of your professional life. It's not everything you've ever done. It's not a full description of your career. It is the distillation of your professional life. And to be useful, it's got to be meaningful, authentic, understandable. It has to differentiate you from everyone else. And more than anything, it needs to be memorable. And that's what we have heard from Shauna. Shauna says, I help manufacturing plants become LEED certified. Well, that's meaningful. I know exactly what LEED certification is. I know exactly what a manufacturing plant is. It's authentic because when I met Shauna, she had done that 3 times globally for Texas Instrument. It's understandable because the words are not, there's no MBA terms in there. I understand every word. It differentiates her because after hearing it 8 or 10 years later, I had never heard anybody say it before. And it must have been memorable because I am not somebody with an ironclad mind, but I remembered that when I met Shauna. So these are the qualifications or the attributes of a really great brand statement about yourself and your own profession. It is the distillation of your professional life. And it is a jumping off point for your brand. So here's the third item in the poll we just took. 70% of people said, listen, I do more than one thing. And you know what? I understand that. We all have long and complicated careers. We've all earned the right to have the bragging rights for our expertise. But the brand statement is only the tip of the iceberg. It's the jumping off point for your brand. And it needs to be short and it needs to be the point, because what we said here is we want it to be memorable. We want it to be memorable because it's going to allow people to act in our behalf when we're not there. It's going to allow people to speak to our qualifications when we're not there to speak about them ourselves, to introduce us to opportunities that we would not have unless somebody did that on our behalf. So once again, if it's meaningful, authentic, understandable, and if it's a differentiator and memorable, it's only the beginning of who you are, and it's an invitation to know you better. So not to worry, it's not everything about you, but it's enough for someone to begin to know you. So let me tell you about myself a little bit more here. I think you know that I'm an executive recruiter and I feel hard to fill jobs. But that's not everything, right? Let's assume that I could reach out and shake one of your hands and say to you, Kathy, thank you for hiring me to fill this position for you. Kathy, you see, most of my career, I was a hiring manager as well as you are. And I'm going to help you hire for this position the way you would if you had the time to do it yourself. So my jumping off point is I'm an executive recruiter. I feel hard to fill positions. And then I fill out the knowledge that, in this case, Kathy has of me. I'm going to help you fill this job the way you would yourself if you had the time. Now, let's say there's somebody out there named John, and John's an HR vice president. And I say to John, John, thank you so much for hiring me to help Kathy fill her job. I'm going to help her fill it the way Korn Ferry would do it for you. But John, I'm going to do it for half of the recruiting fee that you would pay them. So here's Kathy. She's most interested in her time. Here's John in HR. He's most interested in quality and his budget. So I have something new to say to each of them. And I would like to have my brand statement be the jumping off point for people to know me better. And I've prepared that language so they can. So that was just an example for me. Examples for you will be the jumping off point in your brand statement so that people can get to know you more completely and deeply. Let's meet another friend, because these are great examples that we can learn from. Oh, jump the gun. Let me tell you the story first. I met a young woman. Oh, I bet she was about 25 years old. She was an EMBA here in Dallas at SMU. Ooh, bad SMU. Now that we're in their same conference, bad, right? Bad, bad. Go Huskies. Anyway, I was at SMU and I met her. She's an EMBA. I went up to her and I said, Jennifer, my name is Paula Calise. I'm an executive recruiter and a mentor here. What do you do? And Jennifer said, oh, I have a boring job. And I said, oh, that sounds bad. What do you do? And she says, well, I work with North Texas cities. I work with the city of Denton and DeSoto. I work with Euless and Richardson and Plano and Frisco and Addison and I work with Duncanville, and she's going on and on. So many cities. And I said, wow, Jennifer, that's a lot. What do you do for them? She goes, well, I work with their data. I said, well, okay, tell me about that. And she says, well, I work with population and population growth and land use and the land allocation to commercial, residential, and so forth. And I work with climate and rain and runoff and streams. And she's telling me information that sounded like the census report, right? All this census data that comes together. So I still didn't know what she did that she considered boring. And I said, but you know, Jennifer, so you work for Allen and DeSoto and Frisco and Plano with all this data. I still don't understand. What do you do? And she says, oh, well, I write their 30-year water plans so they don't run out of water and they can continue to grow. And I'm like, wow, Jennifer, are you telling me that you're an economic development professional who specializes in water? And Jennifer says, can I say that? I said, yes, Jennifer, I do think you can say that. Because the organizations that you impact, all these cities, the expertise that you bring, and the outcome that you give them, their 30-year water plan, I think you are honest in saying, I'm an economic development professional and I specialize in water. So notice in the blue here, I call this the archetype, your work in a bigger context. And that's what Jennifer had failed to think about. She thought of her job as a data-driven job where she was heads down every day, but really she was making economic impact information available to local cities so they could continue to grow and thrive by having adequate water for the next 30 years. That's an amazing piece of work. And this is an amazing piece of work for a woman as young as Jennifer. I would say she was probably 3 or 4 years out of her undergraduate program, so maybe she was a 25-year-old person. This is a great example of a good brand once Jennifer was able to understand it. So let's look at what a personal, professional brand is not. It is not an advertisement for your employer. And unfortunately, I hear about this a lot. I'll hear people saying, hi, I work for AT&T. We're 140,000 people strong in 123 countries, and we're G5, blah, 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 blah. You know what? I got to tell you, I pay AT&T a lot of money every month. I know who they are. I'm not interested in your employer. I'm interested in you. So your brand is not an advertisement for your employer. Use me as an example. I'm an executive recruiter. I fill hard to fill positions. Do you even know the name of my company? Well, you might, because down there in the bottom, you know, it's copyright linked. But I don't lead with my company is linked. I lead with the fact that I fill hard to fill jobs. And that's why I'd like you to think about your brand. This is not your company's brand unless they're paying you as their, you know, spokesperson, and they want you to lead with their brand. But if they're not paying you as their spokesperson, this is your brand. This belongs to your career. This is your career asset. The next one is interesting, and I hear this. Well, this sounds like bragging. And if we had an open dialogue both ways, I'd ask you, why is this not bragging? There's one real obvious reason. The first and big and obvious reason why this is not bragging is because it's true. Going back to Karen. Karen does revitalize tired brands. She can prove it. Going back to Shauna. Shauna does help plants become LEED certified. She can prove it. I do fill hard to fill jobs. I've done it 500 times. Young Jennifer is an economic development professional. And so the first reason it's not bragging is because it's truthful. But the more important deep issue around not bragging is it's not about me. Let's say if it was bragging, it would sound like this. Hi, I'm Paula Calise. I am the best executive recruiter in the Southwest United States. And you know what? I can prove it to you. Step outside and I'll show you my Maserati. Now that would be bragging. It would be about me, right? But it's not about me. It's about my brand promise. My brand promise, what I promise to do for my clients is fill hard to fill positions. What Karen promises her next employer is that she can revitalize their tired brand. What Shauna promises the next plant manager she helps is that she will help that plant become LEED certified. That's the reason it's not bragging. It's not about yourself. It's about your brand promise. And you know, this is very well aligned with corporate branding, right? The very best corporate brands, they make good on what their brand promise is. And that's what your very best professional brand will do, is it will help you, you will make good on that brand promise. Okay, here's another one. It's not everything you've ever accomplished. Remember in their poll, a bunch of us said, I have a long career. I'm not just a one-liner. I've done many things. I can't narrow it down. It doesn't have to be everything you've ever done in your career. Long before I became an executive recruiter, I had a long and successful career in sales and marketing, and I rose through the ranks, and I was a senior vice president of marketing in well-known companies. But that's not the essence of what I want people to know about me today. And that's the point of branding. What do you want people to know about you today? It's not just a one-liner. I've started describing to you, and we'll talk a little bit more about pillars. Pillars are those things that reinforce, add to, and justify my brand claim or my brand promise. When I say I feel hard to fill positions, I can say, and I've done it 500 times. That fills me out. It's more than one-liner. I can also honestly say, I'm an executive recruiter and I feel hard to fill positions. In 2017-18, Forbes magazine cited my company as one of the global best of the best recruiting firms, one of the 200 global best of the best recruiting firms. I can also add to that when it's appropriate and when I've earned the right to have a conversation. I can also say something like, in December of this year, and this is true, December of 18, I was notified by LinkedIn that I am considered one of the top 10% effective recruiters using LinkedIn. Well, you know what? There are millions of recruiters working on LinkedIn, and I am honored to be cited by LinkedIn as being one of the top 10% recruiters. So see, it doesn't have to be a one-liner. Once you get someone's attention and make yourself understandable and memorable with a short one-liner, then you have the opportunity and the right to fill in the information and give them more information about you and your profession. It's not lifelong and permanent. I will tell you, when I met Shauna Black recently and I told her I remembered her as someone who helps manufacturing plants become LEED certified, she said, oh, Paula, I've moved away from that. I no longer do that. I do blah, 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 blah. Interesting. I say that because I've said to her, Shauna, your new introduction does not nearly come close to your brand like your old one did. We need to get together and work on that. So we'll do that. And the last point is, I believe this is something your career cannot afford to be without. Why would you work hard, long hours? Why do you educate yourself? You have a great degree from UConn, maybe advanced degrees beyond that. If you can't be known for the essence of your professional career, you're shorting yourself. You are. And it's so doable. It's so doable. And we'll spend some time in learning how to do that for each of us. Let's move on. I'm going to tell you another story. I met a man named John, and I said to him, hi, John, my name is Paula. What do you do? And he says, I am a corporate real estate guy. Well, I want to tell you, I'm really glad he clarified that gender thing, right? I got to tell you, it was clear he was a guy. I didn't need that, but okay, he's a corporate real estate guy. Well, I don't know what made me ask, but I said, John, help me understand a point of pride. In corporate real estate, what have you done that you are very proud of and pleased with? And he said, well, when I worked at Nike, I invented Nike World. Oh, okay. Wow, that's cool. Tell me about that. And he said, well, it was in 1995 or 6, whatever he told me. He said he was in Manhattan. He was in Times Square. And Times Square in the late 1990s, early 1990s was kind of seedy. It was also somewhat abandoned. He said, I looked around Times Square and I saw one building after another, vacant, 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 vacant. And I'm in real estate. This interests me. And he said, when I was standing there in Times Square, it occurred to me, wow, What if Nike took like 5 or 10 floors of that big empty building? He said, well, we could do merchandise over here and we could play some handball over there. We could do some more merchandise here and we could have a juice bar. We could do some more merchandise and play some basketball. And he imagineered the Nike world. He went back to his office and he pitched it. And they said, absolutely not. First of all, it's expensive. Second of all, don't you understand that we go to market through our retail partners? You know, we don't want to make all these retailers angry that we're going direct. No, this is dumb. We're not doing it. So John is a tenacious man. He does all the market research. He continues at it. He makes a proposal. He makes a proposal. He makes a proposal. 3 years later, he wore his management down. They said, fine, do one of these Nike worlds, but do it on the other side of the planet. So if it bombs, no one will notice. And I can't remember what John told me. They chose Singapore or Hong Kong, something like that, and put up one of these mammoth Nike worlds. And it was a hit. Not only were there people lined up around the block to buy their merchandise and play handball, to buy their merchandise and drink at the juice bar, but it was a media sensation. Media globally picked it up. And during its run, I think there were 6 Nike Worlds. There was one in Milan, one in London, one in New York, and so forth. What was really cool about that is this was long before experiential retail. I mean, John was kind of a visionary. So I'm like catching my breath on all this interesting story. And he goes, oh yeah, but there's something else I should tell you. And I said, okay, John, what is that? And he said, well, I'm the reason that there are drive-throughs at Starbucks. Okay, tell me about that. He said, yeah, I was on a business trip when I worked for Starbucks and I wanted to get off and have coffee. And, you know, I drove through a McDonald's and got coffee. And it occurred to me, why aren't we providing that at Starbucks? He goes back and he makes a proposal to his management and they say, absolutely not. I said, no, Starbucks is an experience. You've got to come in and smell the coffee. You've got to interface with the barista. You've got to see the live edge counter. You've got to look at the leather furniture and touch that. And John said, no, I don't think that's true. I think people who visit Starbucks are already fans. I think that we need to give them the opportunity for a drive-through and give them the convenience of time and convenience. And so he makes a proposal. They finally break down. They allow John to do 6 of them. And they say, John, do them somewhere that nobody will notice if they fail. So, I mean, he does things like Duluth, right? He chooses some out of the way places. And don't you know, it's a big hit. The year-over-year sales from each of those stores, and that's how retailers judge themselves, same sales day the previous year, are up over 10%, which is an amazing accomplishment in the retail world. And John was once again successful. And if you used a Starbucks and used the drive-through this year, last year, you can thank this man, John. So I said to John, are you telling me that you're in commercial real estate and you're $1 billion brand builder on the back of old-fashioned brick and mortar retail? John goes, yeah, I think I am. So John went from introducing himself as I'm a corporate real estate guy to I'm a $1 billion brand builder on the back of old-fashioned brick and mortar retail. So impactful, so unique, so powerful, so rememberable. So I hope that John is using that introduction today. The archetype here is the results of what I do. John builds businesses on old-fashioned brick and mortar retail. Cool story, very cool story. Okay, why would I recommend that each of you spend the time to do this exercise? Here's the reason. It has an amazingly strong ROI. So I'm not a math person, but somehow I was given an undergraduate business degree, an MBA. I know a little bit of our ROI, and this one has a huge ROI. Let me put this in perspective. So I had a morning appointment today. I got up, spent at least 30 minutes. I'm a girl, maybe 45 minutes, but at least 30 minutes making myself presentable to the world, right? Took a shower, found clean clothes, everything matched, brushed my teeth, got my hair going, spent a little bit lipstick, looked in the mirror, ready to go. About 30 minutes. Guys might want to shave, this kind of thing. If we did that Monday through Friday and not even talk about the weekend, it's about 70 hours a year, at least, making ourselves presentable to the world. 70 hours. And next year, you got to do it again and do it again the next year and the next year and next year. And if you want to go out on Saturday and Sundays, you got to do it again. From a time standpoint, making ourselves physically presentable to the world doesn't have a great ROI because it's used up every day. But if you do an exercise like this, the ROI is tremendous. Let me tell you, I'm an executive recruiter. I feel hard to fill positions. I use that when I meet people face to face, and I'm old, so I really love meeting people face to face, still my favorite. But I also use it on social media. It's at the top of my LinkedIn profile. It's on my bio on my website. It's on the document that I sent out to Joshua when we were talking about doing this presentation today. It's in my signature block. It is actually the way my LinkedIn profile is addressed. It says Paula, hard to fill positions. So everywhere that I have the opportunity to brand myself, I use the same words over and over and over again, thousands of times a year, year after year. The ROI on me spending an hour deciding what the distillation of my professional career is huge, is absolutely huge. And this is why I would ask you to think about spending an hour on your own. Hey, Josh, I think we're going to have another poll about now, aren't we?
That's correct. All right, the poll's now on your screen. Is having a professional brand important to your career? You can select, it is not for me. Yes, I will work on it and use it consistently. Or I already have a brand that works for me. All right, we'll have it up just for another minute or so. Most of you have already jumped in. All right, last call if you want to participate. All right, so Paula, I'm sharing it on the screen now. We have 0 people selected, it is not for me. We have 96% indicating that yes, they will work on it and use it consistently, and 4%, I already have a brand that works for me.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this is why I love UConn. You made my day, totally made my day. I agree with you. This is so worth your time. Okay, let me tell you about 2 or 3 more friends, because one of the things we're doing is we're training our ear to hear how this sounds like. So I'm going to tell you a few more stories and I'll be more brief now because you got the kind of point. So I meet a guy, his name is Mike, and we're sitting next to each other. I introduce myself, he introduces himself, and Mike says to me, I'm a financial planner. I help people over their, how does he say it? He says, I help people get over their financial finish lines. So that's a cool sports analogy. You can see somebody, touching the wall and swimming, or breaking the string in a running event, right? I help people get over their financial finish lines. And I'm going, gosh, I so rarely meet somebody who has something so descriptive to say about their careers. So he and I said, hey, we found a good conversation today. Let's have coffee. So I have coffee with Mike a few days later. And I opened the conversation, Mike, if I'm going to get to know you, I'd like to know about your good work. I said, can you give me an example of one of your clients in your financial practice that really adores the work you've done for them? And he tells me a story about this retired school teacher. And he said to me, she was living very close to the bone. And she was very concerned that she was going to outlive her finances, her money. And he said that, she's made for an unhappy life. She was living like a church mouse. And he worked with her and he made some recommendations. They made some changes and it really improved her life. And he said, Paula, I gave her the gift of enjoying her grandchildren. Because prior to working with her, she never felt that she had any money to spend time or money with them or doing activities with them or any of this. So he says, I gave her back the joy of her grandchildren. But wow, that's a sweet story. So I asked him for another story. And he said he met a man who was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders because he had twin girls in high school and he didn't feel as if he had saved enough money. And these girls were going to He felt that these girls were going to get in debt in order to pay for their college education, and he felt very bad about that. So Mike works with him. They put together a plan. They don't solve it 100%. They make real progress. And Mike says to me, Paula, I relieve the weight of the world on his back. And I went on and I asked Mike for 4 more stories. Have you ever worked with a millennium? Have you ever worked with a couple? And so on and so forth. And in every single story that Mike told me, it always had a good and warm feeling about it. It always said, I've helped this person feel more comfortable. I've helped this person feel more confident. I've released the weight of the world. I've given them the gift of their grandchildren. None of the 6 stories that Mike told me had anything to do with a financial finish line. Not one of them did he say, and she was able to retire 6 years sooner, and they were able to buy a condo on Maui. None of those stories ended with a financial finish line, but all of them ended with a more comfortable and confident client. So really, Mike was helping people feel better about their investments and their future. He was helping them feel comfortable and confident. Nothing whatsoever about a financial finish line. So I had to tell Mike, your financial finish line is untrue. It's disingenuous. It doesn't work for you. And the reason it doesn't work for you, Mike, is do you think that retired teacher or that man with twins is ever going to say to a friend, hey, you got to meet my financial advisor, Mike. He put me over my financial finish line. I said, Mike, they're not going to talk about you like that. They're going to talk about you helping them feel better about their future and their investments. That's your real brand. Well, I got to tell you, Mike felt pretty uncomfortable. He's kind of a tall, athletic, kind of a little bit, out there kind of guy. He liked that sports analogy. He wasn't really comfortable with the softer side of himself and the successes that he brings his clients. But you know what? That really is his brand, and he should use it, because no one is going to go with the financial finish line once they know him. It's just not what he does, not what he does for them, not what they think about him. So this is an actual opposite story of the other stories that I've told you, where people really do fit their brands. This is a good example of when it doesn't fit. This is something to stay away from. I'm going to introduce you to another friend of mine. His name is Bill Wallace. If anybody is on this call from the Dallas community, there's probably an 80% chance, 90% chance you know Bill Wallace. Bill Wallace has run something called Success North Dallas, has 500 or 600 members, maybe more, over time, thousands, for 30 years. It's a networking program. This is how Bill Wallace, my friend, introduces himself. He says, I introduce the right people for the right reasons at the right time. So my friend, Kathy, was in one of these sessions like you are today, and she hears me talk about Bill Wallace. And she calls me one day and she says, Paula, I met Bill Wallace yesterday. I said, great. She says, yep, I was at a meeting. She said, there was a man standing behind me, and he said, I introduced the right people for the right reasons at the right time. And she says, I swung around, I looked him in the eye and said, hey, you must be Bill Wallace. And Bill laughed. He says, yes, I am. And she goes, Paula, Calise told me that you would say that about yourself. So how cool is that? You can turn your back on someone with a strong brand, and it could still be recognized. That's the power of really having a wonderful, clear, thoughtful, authentic, understandable, memorable brand. Bill Wallace. I have one more friend to introduce you to. Her name is Christina. So a lot of times I do these sessions that we're doing here today, and I do it in a 2-hour increment. We do this for the first hour, and then we do a workshop. We're in the second hour of the workshop, and I'm walking around, and I walk up to this gal, and her name is Christina, and she's struggling, and I say, hey, Christina, what's going on? She goes, no, Paula, this is not working for me. I'm not comfortable with this. I don't want to do this. And she's kind of nervous about it. And I said, Christina, what's going on? Why? So I sit down and I talk to her. And Christina actually is a salesperson. She sells technology. She sells cloud computing technology. But Paula, that is not what I want to be known for. That is not where my heart is. That is not where my passion is. She says, that's what I do to put food on the table. I said, well, what's your heart? What's your passion? She says, I advocate for organ donation. Well, that's pretty cool. I started talking to her, and it turns out that she herself is an organ donor, and the organ donor in the best sense of it. Christina gave her kidney to a total stranger because it was the right thing to do. And since that really life-changing experience, Christina has wanted to be involved with advocating on the part of organ donation. So I said, Christina, we can do both. And here's how we handled Christina. By day, I sell cloud technology, and by heart, I advocate for organ donation. This is the archetype you see at the bottom. It's in blue. I call it aspirational. A lot of us have two strong attributes in our career. In this case, she sells cloud technology, but her real heart belongs to organ donation. In other cases, because I teach MBA students, I might say, today I'm an MBA student and I'm soon to graduate and whatever, complete the sentence in the such and such a career, or return to my so-and-so career. I also see this in military executives as they're transitioning out of the military. Met a man recently. He said, well, my current profession is that I fly helicopters for the US government, but soon I'm going to be a financial executive when I complete my MBA. Boom, that works great. And you know, there's a kind of nice warm feeling like he's out protecting us with his helicopter. And soon, at the completion of his MBA, he will be a financial executive. Great, I can remember that. So here's one where you want to span two parts of your life, two parts of your career, now and the future. And you can do it with the word and, or just a semicolon. So this is the archetype I call aspirational. Okay, I've given you all the information. Let's figure out a way that you can do it for yourself. There are 3 steps to be remembered, and this is what you can do yourself starting today. First is know yourself. See the patterns across your successes. And I highly recommend you do this with a partner. It's really helpful to have somebody to talk this out with. And help that partner by understanding 3 of your successes, or 3 of your accomplishments, or 6 of your successes and 6 of your accomplishments. Because what we want to see is we want to see a pattern of who you are and what you deliver in your brand each time you deliver. Or another way to do this is a 360-degree perspective. And that might be something like, let's say you did a really good piece of work, and what did your boss think or say about you? What did your coworkers say about you? What did the people that reported say about you or report to you? What did your internal or external clients say about you? What did your business partner say about you? So that gives you a 360 look. If you can discern what people say about you, you will uncover what your brand is. You will, absolutely. Especially if you get more than one point of view. Or finally, what is the biggest, baddest accomplishment that you've done? And we actually saw that right in the beginning when I introduced you to Karen. Karen is a vice president of marketing, and she revitalizes tired brands. It's not the only thing she's ever done, but boy, it's the biggest thing she's ever done. So maybe that's your brand. So the first thing is to see the forest from the trees. So those of us who make our professions, who work in detail, for example, if you're an engineer, we want you to be great detail. If you're an accountant or CPA, you have to be detailed. If you're a scientist, you have to be detailed. But this is one time where you want to step away, look at the big picture, and force yourself to see the forest for the trees when you identify your brand. The next thing is create a capstone brand introduction, okay? The capstone, and these are the archetypes that we've already seen. The biggest, baddest thing you've ever done, that was Karen. I revitalized tired brands. The newest accomplishments. When I met Shauna, she was helping manufacturer plants become LEED certified. It's not the only thing. For example, Shauna is a double E out of Colorado Mines. She worked for Texas Instruments for 22 or 4 years. She had lots of assignments. But the most recent thing that she had done is helping manufacturing plants become LEED certified. Your work in a bigger context. Remember young Jennifer, 2, 3, 4 years out of undergraduate school, getting an EMBA. She didn't have a boring job. She's an economic development professional specializing in water. She just had to see her work in a bigger context. What is your bigger context? Where do you impact the world? The results of what I do. John is $1 billion brand builder. It is exactly what he does. He is a corporate real estate guy, but that undersells him. That is not his brand. The essence of the person. Mike wanted to put people over their financial finish line. It was disingenuous. That doesn't work. But he does help his clients become more comfortable and confident in their financial futures. And if you talk to that retired teacher or that dad of those twins, they'll tell you that. They will speak on Mike's behalf in those words. Repeated success. Bill, he introduces the right people at the right time for the right reason. That's mine as well. I feel hard to fill jobs time and time and time and time again. And finally, aspirational. And this is where you want to tie something to something else. By day, I sell cloud technology, Christina says, but by heart, I'm an advocate for organ donation. So that's what these capstone archetypes sound like. But don't start there. I really, really, really ask you to start by knowing yourself. When you start to know yourself, it will start sounding like one of these. And then next thing, this goes back to the very first poll. I'm more than a one-liner. I do many things in my career. This is where you lay in some pillars that you identify for yourself, you practice, and then you deliver when the time is right. You heard me. I'm an executive recruiter. I feel hard to fill positions. When I talk to Kathy, who's a hiring manager, Kathy, I save you time. When I talk to the HR executive, I do a quality job like Korn Ferry, but for half the fee. If I'm talking to a big company and they're only going to hire a company like themselves, like a big company, that's when I pull out my, hey, Forbes claims that I'm one of the global 200 best of the best. Or LinkedIn says that I'm in the top 10% effective recruiters globally on their platform. So those are my pillars. I have them memorized. I know when to use them, and I pull them out when they're ready. This is going to be a great tool for you if you ever have a reason to sit in an interview for a promotion, right? You want to know what your pillars are. You want to talk to people who are evaluating you for promotion and be able to know what your competencies are, what you deliver, what your brand delivers. Not only what you know, but what you deliver. This is also, these help you if you're in a job search situation where people say, tell me about yourself. The dreaded, tell me about yourself. I started the conversation with that when I asked that to Karen. What did Karen tell me? I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this, I do this. Who cares? Who cares? So what? So what? But when Karen says, I revitalize tired brands, and let me give you some detail behind it, these are her pillars. So 3, 4, 5, 6 pillars that you identify, and they clarify, support your professional brand, and you can deliver them as you need them. Finally, test it. I call it CASBA. Is your professional brand clear? Is it factual? Is it specific? Is it brief? And is it authentic? If you got 4 of those 5, you're probably okay. You really are going for all 5. You're judging your own professional brand statement on all 5 of these. Got 4, probably can do it. Got less than 4, start over. Got it? So we're going to test. And Josh, that's where I'm done. Maybe we could take a question or two.
Sure. Thank you so much, Paula. That was fantastic. I myself am taking down notes as you're talking, so you may hear from me shortly about my own brand as this continues, because that was really insightful, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise. For those that didn't know, Paula actually was one of our keynote speakers in our Elevate Your Career Next Level month of career and professional development in the Dallas area and received rave reviews as well. So hopefully you all got some value out of that. We did have one question that came through, Paula, and it does add a little bit of a twist here. We've talked about your professional brand as it relates to what you have done in your career. This person is looking from the perspective of what do you recommend when you're trying to shift what you're doing and going in a completely different direction when you're looking for work? How do you want to brand yourself? How do you brand yourself for what you want to do, not necessarily what you have done?
Okay, that's the Christina story. So you might say something like my helicopter guy, right? Today, I fly helicopters for the US government. Soon I'll complete my MBA and I will be a financial executive, right? So it's this one here. It's a and kind of a statement, or soon kind of a statement, or based on being a nurse for 20 years, I'm going to take my helping profession to corporate education. So you acknowledge the 20 years of nursing. I'm going to take my helping heart to corporate education. And you bridge over to that future that you want. So here's the archetype called aspirational. This is the exact one that solves the problem for the person that you just asked that question.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Paula. Folks, if there are any last minute questions that you'd like to throw out, now's your time to do that by using that question toolbar. In the interim, as we wait to see if anything else comes through, just want to make sure that everybody knows we do have our last career hack presentation on April 10th. You can sign up by going to uconnalumni.com/events and do that right there. Seeing nothing else coming in, I just want to extend our sincere appreciation to Paula for the multiple sessions that you've done for us over the last 2 months. We greatly appreciate it. Always great to hear all the great things that you're working on, Paula, and hopefully we'll see you soon when I'm out in Dallas in the coming year. So thank you again for joining us, and to everybody that joined us today, thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Paula, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye now.